Joining us on this episode is Citlalli Rico. Citlalli has been photographing weddings for almost 18 years in Cancun, racking up over 600 weddings along with her sister Tamara. She's spoken at conferences as a teacher in Mexico, the US, Ecuador, Colombia, Argentina, the Netherlands, Italy, France, India, and another half dozen countries around the world. Her long, successful career in an industry that oftentimes prioritizes trends rather than consistency only further proves she's an incredibly knowledgeable talent with no end in sight. I'm Kyle Wilson, and this is The Photographer's Problem.
How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? So happy to be here, finally.
Yeah, I know. It took us a little bit to get here, but I'm super stoked. I really loved listening to your live with James, which was, I feel like a couple months ago now.
Yeah.
But it was just really informative, and your work is something that hadn't, like, it always surprises me when I find really amazing photographers and then I haven't seen their work. Like, how did it just a compliment to either how many great photographers there are or how bad Instagram is at filling my page with like the things I actually want to see. And so, yeah, your work is really lovely. And right at the top, I think it gets talked about a lot, but you've been a full-time working photographer for a really long time now, yeah?
That's right. Well, thank you for all the kind words. I love your work.
Of course, thanks.
So here we're admiring each other and our work. Thank you for that. Yeah, I've been a wedding photographer for almost 18 years now. It's been a while.
That's amazing.
Almost half of my
Um,
life. That's crazy.
yeah, I don't want to, like I said before we chatted here, I definitely don't want to lean in too hard to that singular topic or focus because I think that probably gets brought up a lot. But I would be interested just because I started photographing weddings with my dad when I was 14. So a really long, so yeah, by the time I was 16 or 17, I had already been to 100 weddings, either holding gear, carrying stuff, or photographing in some capacity. So it was just, I had a lot of experience right away. But seeing how weddings were in what would have been 2003 or 2004 to now, they're just such a different wedding. I'd be really interested to hear like what on either end of the bookend, like what you've seen that's totally different from when you started to now within the industry.
Well, it definitely has shifted a lot, but I think it's very important to situate the context of how I work. And I've been living in Cancun for over 30 years, and I've
Wow.
been shooting here 18, right? So I've always worked for couples from international couples from the States or Canada or the UK, and so most of my weddings are resort, kind of like all inclusive style. And there are most of them on the beach. So even though the market has shifted and weddings are a little bit different, I will say that they they don't look the same, but they kind of have the same energy, the same vibe, because
Mm,
everybody's on vacation. So most of the people are like just chill and enjoying. That's the greatest part about destination weddings, is that you don't have everyone stressed out at home running around picking up
yeah.
the dress or the suit, or they're just like really chilling by the pool before the wedding starts.
Yeah, how could they be high strung and stressed? That's pretty cool. I think about when I first started with my dad, he would have to bring an extra backdrop to receptions because there was a whole thing where you'd be at the reception and you'd set up a backdrop with two studio lights and everybody that was at this reception could come up at any time and take a photo, like a professional studio photo. And this was every wedding. This was 40 weddings a year. We're bringing gear and backdrops and lights to set up this little studio setup. And I don't know when that changed, but thank God that went away. And it was these really large bridal parties, really big, ornate kind of posing, and lots of time spent with the bridal party, which seemed like the standard. Now, like, there's plenty of photographers that will do that. I'm not one of them. I'm like, I get everything I need. You want a fun photo? That's fine. Be fun, and then get out. I have couples photos to take. The other time, but it was so different before. But that's pretty cool that like you get this, you kind of automatically get people in a really chill zen state.
Yeah, for me, that has been like a blessing, because having not very stressed people out, during the day, it's pretty awesome. And also, I tend to adapt a lot to the couple's personality. Some couples really want a lot of photos with their bridal party,
Yeah.
I don't love spending a lot of time posing a ton of people. It's not my favorite, but I will definitely do it for them.
Yeah.
I understand about like bringing all that gear before. I used to bring like so many lenses and things, and now we don't do the studio thing, but now we have photo booths, right? Like, and even though you
Yeah.
don't get the same result, it's kind of the idea of people having their photo taken in a different way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I find that it has shifted in a way that people pay more attention to certain things, like decoration, for example. They don't just go with the flow with whatever the venue is giving them. They're paying more attention because of Pinterest, because of we used to
Yeah.
have Style Me Pretty before. Like people are just getting more ideas and more motivation to do things differently, or just I don't know. Those are the things that I can see how people are spending more money on right now than
Have
before.
you noticed that venues have, because in the past when I've ever worked at or communicated with friends or clients who might be getting married at an all inclusive, they go, "Oh yeah, the place we're getting married at, they do everything. They're like, there's a planner, there's a photographer, there's a videographer, they do everything, and they do 5 of them a day." Has that shifted at all? I haven't shot at an all inclusive in a really long time. Has that vibe of like they just do everything? Is it still the same?
Well, yes, they do everything. They do have their own vendors, so that's been hurting the industry, the photography industry, for a while because they have their inside photographers that won't allow external vendors to shoot unless they charge a penalty fee to the client,
Yeah.
and that penalty fee can be crazy, like $2,000 or something like
Oh
that
wow.
per vendor. So if you want to
Yeah.
bring your own videographer and your own makeup artist, and so
The
that
cost of
hurts.
convenience of having all of your people stay on site comes with this penalty of like creative control.
Exactly. Exactly. So that hurts the industry, definitely the wedding industry in general, and the client too, because they don't get to choose. They're
Yeah.
stuck with the vendors, right? Like the on-site vendors. So that still pretty much the same,
Okay.
but clients are still willing to pay for these fees in order to get the person or
Yeah.
the team that they want to work with. So what has shifted is that there are some venues that are still shooting, like, I mean, having or hosting 5 weddings per day, and there are some others that are like blocking the whole weekend for a wedding, and the
Oh
whole
wow.
staff is kind of is and it's not even a buyout, but the whole staff is kind of working towards that wedding, and they care about the clients. And so there are different experiences depending on what kind
Yeah.
of wedding you want to have. We have a
Is
little bit of everything.
how are those photographers that work as vendors, specific photographers, viewed in your like local communities? I will say as an external person who has stayed at all inclusives for pleasure as well as for work, I whenever I see these photographers running around and I know they're shooting one at 11 and another one at 2 and another one at 5, and I go, well, they can't be that good. What this is like a money, like a weekend warrior kind of guy. Is that the view of like those kind of photographers from your local group of people?
Well, I guess are most of us started that way. That's the
Mm,
interesting part, I
interesting.
didn't work for a venue, but I worked for a studio that we used to shoot 100 weddings per year. So that was like pretty busy for everybody.
Yeah.
And I won't say that I wasn't amazing when I started, but then I just built up so much confidence and learned so much from shooting that many weddings that it helped tremendously to get better. So I do have like a lot of respect for the guys that are starting at resorts,
Yeah.
because I know they're not getting paid very well.
Totally.
Some of them are amazing already. They're very talented. Some are just starting. So
I feel like I
the
never see young guys. It's never like they're never 23, 24 when I've seen it. It's like maybe I was when I was starting, or maybe you were. I feel like I've always seen, it's your like kind of a dad vibe thing going on, at least in my experience, the few times I've seen it. So it's all anecdotal, but that's why I wondered. I went, oh, they're just cool with doing this for 20 years. I guess that's what they're gonna do.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, here it's normally really young kids that are
Oh wow,
starting,
okay.
and they're getting paid very little, and then after maybe a year or so, they have the experience and know what they're doing, so they're starting their own studio. So now
Okay.
we're like a
That's cool.
billion. Yeah, no, it's pretty awesome, but it's just that the resorts are producing so many new photographers that, well, not complaining, but we do have a lot of competition.
Yeah, yeah, I would imagine so because I mean that happens with anybody that brings on associates that you bring somebody on and a year or two in it's you really have to find that like unicorn who says, "Hey, I really want to be good at this, but I have no interest in running the overhead and running my own
Yeah,
business and all this. So I just want to be your best buddy forever." But
totally.
that's so rare. And so for any of these locations, they're charging low, teaching heavy wedding boot camp experience, and then they're getting flicked into the wild and now they become your problem.
Totally. And it's fine. I mean, I've been doing this for so long that I know that this is going to happen, and it's going to still
Yeah.
happen. And some of them will push through all the hard work of being like a successful wedding photographer in this jungle, but some of them won't, and they will just shift to something else. And but I've seen, like, in all these years, I've seen so many becoming really great at what they do, and I'm proud
Mhm.
of them because I know it's
Yeah.
not easy working for a venue that
No.
it's not giving you a lot of money for what you do. It's hard work.
Yeah. I mean, I think about the first couple years that I was shooting, and it was my dad's old Canon 20D, a nifty 50, some 28 to 35. It's something bad, some really crappy lens, and like a flash. And if I went over 400 ISO, I was going to get crazy grain. And I was shooting 45 weddings that year for a DJ company who wanted to add photo into their sphere of business. And
Wow.
so everything, I think I was shooting, if I recall, we charged $1,200 a wedding, and I made 400 of it. The other photographer got four, and the studio got four. So it was this like three-way split deal. But I mean, $400 for a full wedding in obviously like the worst environments possible because they're cheap. And so it's just doing that for a year, and then I went, okay, I'm ready to. I've learned everything I need to know. I've added all the current skills I need. I got to get out of here. But it's a good boot camp to go to limit yourself. I didn't have the gear. I didn't have the scenarios that I wanted. I didn't have the clientele, or I wasn't the photographer for the clientele that I wanted. But I think there's no way I would know what I know now without going through that nonsense.
I agree. I agree. It's like it's so important because it's teaching you like how to become creative with very little, and also people skills. You know that,
Yeah,
and learning the language of a wedding, because it's not the same going and shoot a portrait shoot than actually understanding how ceremonies work and how,
yeah,
like, how to call like certain part of the dress, or like there are crazy things
yeah.
that you never know that you're gonna need when you're shooting these
I
photos.
love, and I'm sure you experience this too, that you just know the answer to everything on a wedding day. And I was chatting with a photographer yesterday about it, who they're not just starting, but they're just a couple years in, and maybe they've shot 40 or so, and they were saying they're still kind of stressed on a wedding day. And I went, oh, that's because you haven't had every single scenario happen to you 6 times. Like I think at this point I did the numbers. I'm like 675 weddings in or something, and so it's just I mean, Jeff Bezos is going to have to crash his spaceship into the reception for me to go, whoa, this is different than anything's ever happened before. I'm caught off guard.
I know, I understand. And even like after all those experiences and kind of knowing it all, especially like for someone like me that's been shooting the same venues over and over and over again,
Yeah.
uh, just seeing different things, it's so refreshing. It's like I'm not stressed at all. I'm so happy that I get to
Yeah.
photograph this.
Yeah, it is so like I like the way you put it though, the language of a wedding, which is something that I have not had something so eloquently put before because that's how I feel. I feel it while I'm shooting it. I feel it when I think about it. I feel it when the planner says, "Oh man, I really wish we could, I'm trying to get Dad for toast, but he's over there talking and I can't get him. I'll be right back."
Yeah.
And I'll go, let's make this happen. Like I know what needs to happen next, so let's do it. Or the DJ's speaking too long, my sunset's gonna change. There's just these little shifts in the room that I just can feel, but have never had a word for it. So that's pretty cool. What has been the proudest moment of your career?
Okay, I think
You can have more than one, by the way, too, because I feel like you've had a lot go on. And even just looking at your website, like, oh, you're already a top 10 wedding photographer. Like, there's a lot to be proud of.
Thanks. Well, I think one of the things that when I started shooting with the studio is that it was pretty awesome, but I felt really lonely. It felt like there wasn't much happening, that I didn't know how to feel inspired. Actually, when I started, wedding photography was looked down at. Like, people will say, even still, when you say
Even
you're
I
a
was
wedding
gonna
photographer,
say, even still,
yeah, like people are like, yeah, I thought you were like a fine art photographer or like nature photographer. I'm like, no, I'm a wedding photographer and I'm proud of it. But
yeah,
for some people, it's not as amazing as we know it is. So back then, after a year of shooting, I realized that I wanted to see what was happening in the world, because I was sure that something else was being done that I wasn't aware of. So I found these associations. Back then it was the WPJA, that it's about photojournalism but in weddings, and my mind was blown. Like, I was so amazed by all these photos that were taken at weddings, and in a way that you're capturing things in a natural way, that I
yeah,
really wanted to be part of that world. So when I started submitting images into contests and I started winning, that was a really proud moment for me. And
that's cool.
contests are not for everybody, and I totally get it. But for me, it was very important because it put my name on the map, and people started noticing me, and I won pretty important awards, like yearly awards that helped me to start speaking in gigs and conferences and congresses all over the world. And that was really proud for me. Like, I was really excited. I was maybe 30 when this happened, and it was pretty crazy because I never had a chance to travel. But because of this, now I was in Amsterdam and in Portugal and in Brazil, and and it was like, how on earth is this happening? I'm
Yeah,
so excited for
that
that.
camera just opens so many doors.
Yes, so
Yeah,
I think
that's amazing. I definitely share a few of those sentiments. One of which being that when I tell people that are non-creatives, or even sometimes just my full-time artist friends, and I tell them I'm a wedding photographer, or if I meet new people, I have this idea in my mind what people immediately jump to, like the stereotypical wedding photos, and it's like a bridal party jumping in the air. And yeah, those photos totally exist. And I find myself, just because I have issues with self-value or something, but I find myself like shoehorning my Instagram or a website or just a series of photographers I look up to into their face. So I go, no, 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 no. Like, I do this. This is it's different. It's different than you've seen before. And it's really neat in these photo contests to start to see that, because I don't know, even just in this job, I've been privy to seeing a wider a wider berth of photos from wedding photographers around the world than I normally would be exposed to. And um, it's really interesting to see and go, oh yeah, my work did take a different lane than a lot of the standard wedding photos. And so these contests, your work shines to the top, and you get to go, oh, I'm actually doing something really unique. I'm really speaking to my own personality and existence into my work. And so it's just this like wonderful feedback loop of positivity for your own work and like building yourself. And now you get to travel and do all these other things.
Yeah, I can't complain. It's been an amazing journey, and obviously I do complain sometimes, but in general, it's
There's things to complain about.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you know. But I can see how your work is that kind of work that you're proud to show off. Like when you say I'm a wedding
Yeah.
photographer and people look at you like, and you're like,
Yeah.
this is my Instagram. People will be like, whoa, that's amazing. So
Or even just recently, I have a full time painter friend who was just asking me about wedding photographers because she actually went and shot her first wedding herself in Portugal just recently, and borrowed my gear and went off to go do it and did a pretty good job, which was pretty cool, but learned how stressful it was quickly. And she goes, I don't know how you've done this for so long. I can never do this again. And but in showing her all these photographers, and I sent her over like your Nirav Patels and your Kristen Parkers and your Jordan Voths and things like that. And she goes, dude, I did not even know
I
that
know.
this type of work existed. And she goes, you have ruined me. And my Instagram is nothing but these really overly expensive, beautiful wedding photographers. And I was like, sorry,
Understand.
my bad. Enjoy.
It's a world that it's yeah, we need to show it off a little bit more
Yeah.
often because it's pretty amazing. And it's pretty amazing because what we do is under stress, and it's not like it's a, you know, like the pat in the back for everybody,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you guys, like, I know you're judging, but this job is pretty
Yeah.
hard. So
Yeah. If I meet photographers, I think really intelligent, well-rounded photographers will always go, "Oh yeah, you're a wedding photographer? That's hard.
I know.
You've so many multidisciplinary things throughout the day that you have to manage." And I think the same people that go and get in like little stupid fights about Canon versus Nikon are the same type of photographer who go, "Oh yeah, weddings, like I don't respect that
Whatever.
work." Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Like
Exactly.
I'm not really worried about you. Any
Exactly.
really good photographer knows being a wedding photographer is really like a big stretch of work in every direction. And I think if you can get good at it, you can be good at any other kind of photography.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. That's awesome.
Throughout all this time, what's been your worst business decision?
My worst business decision. Okay, so um, I don't know if I don't know who's watching or listening, but I'm from Mexico, right? So we have zero financial education ever. Like not just at home, but also in school. There is no insurance that it's like mandatory at all, unless not even the car insurance is mandatory, or maybe now
Okay.
it is. I'm not sure, but it wasn't, right? So I think I have a couple. Well, I have a ton of bad decisions
Yeah,
in
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
business, but one of them is like waiting too long to start saving for my retiring thing, because
Oh
it's not
man.
something that people will tell you when you're young. Like, hey, if you start in your 20s and you start saving very little, you will be amazing. You will be pretty much sad when you're older. So that took me a while, but at least I already started, right?
Yeah.
And the other one is
I'm
that
still working on it. So,
you're still working
you
on it.
know,
Okay, but
yeah.
you're good.
I,
You will be
yeah,
fine.
I'm doing the things now that I should have been doing when I was 25. But
Well,
25-year-old me, like most people, are totally unknown to that world.
exactly. But I think it's so important that someone tells you, you know, hey, if you start saving maybe, I don't know, $50 a month, that will add up, and
Yeah,
eventually will help you. So now that is been taken care of. I wish I started earlier, but that's okay. So if you're a young person that your country is not telling you what to do, this is like an advice that I recommend you to take. And the other one is that when I started, we were flooded with work, right? Like it was so many weddings that all my energy and efforts in education were put towards becoming a better photographer. And I wish I put a little bit more effort on learning the business part.
yeah,
But because we were so busy, that part wasn't very important, and now it is, right? Because
yeah.
it's a very competitive market, and I'm still living out of this, and I want to keep going for a few more years, but I just have a hard time um, just keeping up with everything. It's
Yeah,
so much.
yeah. I think both in the wedding industry, well, just photo industry as a whole, as well as my only experience is the American education system, which is mediocre. And like there's no budget conversation. There's no tax conversation. And like there's a difference between, I mean, I heard all the time growing up, you should save 5, 10, 50, 100,000, whatever. You should save this. But the philosophy around how to even
Mhm.
have that money to save, like now I go, hey, I want a thing. Cool. Let's put it on the list and park it for 30 days. And in 30 days, if you decide you still want it, let's start saving for it. And then in 60 days, if you still want it, then you can buy it. And so often that thing that I would have spent $500 on becomes something I go, never mind. And now that money exists for me to save. But that notion of idea was not instilled anywhere in school or in family life. Oh, and I don't think it comes up in any photo convention conversations. Data backup and budgeting and taxes and insurance are just not discussions that people have at Heck Yeah Photo Camp, and it's not fun and nobody talks about it, but I think they're super important.
I know, and you're right. It's not fun. Like no one wants to go and listen to a person talking about numbers for an hour. But the very few that I have listened to have been very helpful, and it's definitely something that we need to start looking at. at any age instead of just pretending doesn't exist, because it can hurt you really bad.
I remember I had to, I can't remember the specifics of why, but I had to look up a series of photographers and look up like their business addresses and things. And the best way to do that is to check business licenses online. And it was crazy to see out of a group of 10 pretty well to do successful photographers, only three of them had business licenses. The rest of them were operating not like that. And as I dove deeper into their businesses, because I was really interested now, I just found so many issues with them online and deep bad reviews and just really interesting back end stuff that kind of got pushed aside. But it's really, I think a lot of people just jump on Facebook or whatever it is at the time. Maybe it's Instagram more now and TikTok and start a business. And now they're a wedding photographer. And there's all these other steps along the way to like secure your business, secure yourself, have your butt covered that does not get shown to the force or the forefront of conversations.
Of course, and when you're starting, you really just want to improve your how to see light, or maybe how to learn how to start using flash, or that's a fun part if you like the technical aspect of it, or even buying presets or whatever. But then when they say, hey, you have to pay taxes, you're like, what?
Yeah, it's
So
so
yeah.
difficult. What has been on the flip of that? What's been your best business decision?
My best business decision, I think the smartest was there are two. One is leaving the studio, even though I love them to death. The shift was it was happening right when social media was taking over pretty much everything. So in order to be seen, we needed to show up in social media, and the studio wasn't ready for that. We're so busy that social media wasn't a priority. So that's when I said, okay, I need to start my own thing. And it worked out very well, because now I was like, all, obviously I had business expenses, but all the money was for my business. So that was a good one. And the other smart thing that I just forgot, so I wasn't that smart anymore. If I remember, I will let you know.
Yeah,
But
if it was so pivotal. I think leaving a studio is really hard. Like my
it
first big studio
was.
that I really worked for outside of that DJ thing was my first kind of mentor person, someone who really showed me like how to do the job. And then unfortunately, as time goes on, I learned he's, just not a great person. But I learned, I went, okay, you showed me this, but now it's time to distance myself. But it was him and I and another couple of guys, and we all shared things equally. And I've said this a couple times. The wedding industry is not so lucrative that you can
No.
split it that direction. So these people have associates now, and everything is tiered where they're under them. I think those are really financially successful spaces. It sounds really busy, and it makes me tired just thinking about it. But the splitting away and going, okay, just because the four of us were able to like do this thing together, and there was a lot of debt I had to leave with, and even one of them who was like at the time one of my closest people, and we really had the same artistic brain. As soon as I stepped away just a little bit, I could see that I just elevated myself to a totally different tier of
Yeah.
skill and desire and art. And it was so much better to do it on my, it was so much better to do it on my own, even though, I mean, I've shot over 250 weddings with my previous business partner. Like I've spent a ton of time, and to this day, I still shoot a wedding and I'm like, I wish Steven was here. It's just
Aw,
fun to have my buddy.
of
But
course.
this moving away from that and doing your own thing, it's so amazing. Do you have associates or anybody shooting for you? Like I heard earlier you said we,
Oh
and so I
yeah,
didn't know
I'm
if you had a
always.
partner that was like editing or running your business.
It's true. I'm always speaking in plural, because I've been working with my sister since we started. So she became my second shooter quickly, like after a year. So we've been working together for 17 years. And most of the weddings that we've shot, it's been the two of us. And I tried to do the associate thing, but I realized that it doesn't make me any happy to have to tell people what to do, or having to.
It's a ton of
Oh my
work
god! And it's
just to
exhausting.
even get a person, to get them on the page that you are, then to retain them, and then 18 months later they dip.
And I'm fine with that process if I enjoyed the idea of sending someone to a wedding and not being in control of what they're doing. And like that was so stressful for me. It's like, did you leave your home yet? You have to make it, and it's so
Yeah.
late, and remember
You can
that
never trust
certain.
anyone as much as you trust your own clock in the morning. And I don't even I'm even concerned about me getting there on time.
I know, and it's so hard. It was hard for me, and I understand that for some people that they love doing that, and they know they love telling people what to do, and they have no problems delegating and outsourcing stuff. But for me, it's really hard. So that's part of the process. But definitely, associates didn't work for me. It's just my sister and I. And now I just remember what's the second good decision that I made in my business. And this is important. And I want to share it because I think it's very important that we all do it. And it's, um, I'm sorry if I'm making up the word because English is obviously not my first language, but it's that diversifying the business a little bit. Okay. So, I mean, the problem is that it's still me doing everything, but at least not all my income is coming from weddings. It's also from teaching. Like I know a ton of photographers have been doing that, but I started doing this over 10 years ago. So that helped tremendously, in a way that I didn't have to shoot as many weddings. And teaching is not as time consuming as it is a wedding. So that helped a lot. But just finding something else that will bring income, it will be very important too. Even if you're just starting,
Yeah.
please do
Yeah,
it.
I started out with shooting seniors and families and weddings and anything and I would say yes to everything, which I think is important to do a volume of work. And then I started looking at the photographers that I love the most, which I'm pretty vocal about my fanboy for Sam Hurd out of DC. And he's a wedding photographer. He's not all these other photographers, it's just weddings. And I went, okay, let's get rid of everything else. Let's identify as just a wedding photographer. But in the same way that I put all my eggs in the Instagram basket years ago, if that it's just too fickle, it's too out of my control to say that's my only lane of income. That means 3 months out of the year, I'm standing in the shower, freaking out if people are going to find me, like me, email me, book me. And so I feel like a lot of people are diversifying more now into the,
Mhm.
especially since COVID, into the, okay, I'm going to make YouTube videos, or I'm going to make videos, or I'm going to do education, or I'm going to shoot corporate or brand, or whatever it may be. I think education is such a cool spot for somebody like you because probably not too dissimilar from me, just this pile of knowledge that just kind of feels like it lays around sometimes. And I almost, at any given chance, if I have a new friend who's a photographer who's just trying to get their like world going, I'm like, let's go get coffee.
Mhm.
Let's get coffee, open your ears for like 5 hours and bring a notebook. I will just tell you everything I know. And I don't like the structure of trying to put educational pieces together. That sounds really hard and always has been for me. But if I can just kind of free flow it a little bit. It's
Yeah.
a cool space. And so if you've found lanes to do that, that's really, really cool. And it's still yourself
Yeah,
bringing that to the table.
definitely. And the more you teach, the more you learn. And that sounded a little bit weird at the beginning, but then I realized that connecting to other photographers, I was learning so much from them. And as I started, well, like a decade ago, there weren't as many workshops as now. So I was able to give a ton of those, and that gave me a lot of experience teaching. And so it's been a great journey, that one too. I'm not as teaching as much now because also COVID helped me to slow down a little bit. I realized it was very important for my mental health and to go to therapy and like taking things slow and not traveling as much because I used to travel so much. So now I'm spending more time taking care of myself, and that's been a pretty wise decision.
Yeah. Little self prioritization. We were talking about that before we jumped on this call. I think it's really important. And unfortunately, sometimes it feels like you're abandoning some other responsibility, like exterior social responsibilities by focusing inward. But I think in an industry like this, where you're constantly exhaling a part of yourself by creating something, if you're not inhaling, whether that be creatively or emotionally or whatever it may be, somewhere, like after this call, I'm going to take a 45-minute walk and go listen to a podcast just to put some nutritional something into my brain, inhale something, because later today I'm going to have to do something else that's exhaling.
Again, yeah.
So I think that's really important. What's the camera you're carrying with you most these days, whether it be for work or personal?
For work,
It's like the one gear question I put in this
one
podcast.
year. That was good. I think it's my A9. I shoot hybrid right now. I'm still shooting this DSLR with Nikon and mirrorless with Sony. But the A9 is my go-to right now. But I still love the DSLR, and there are some things that I'm not loving about mirrorless, even though I switched years ago.
Yeah. What's the Nikon
So,
you're shooting with?
pardon me?
What's the Nikon you're shooting with? This is like the 850.
D750.
Oh yeah, I've
You
been
have it?
shooting two D750s for since they released. It's all I've
I
got.
know. Good.
It's
Are you shooting with those?
yeah. I've had two D750s, a 24, a 35, and a 58, and one speed light. That's been my kit for 6 years
Wow.
now. Really
Nice.
light,
Good.
one Pelican case worth. I'll mix it up once in a while. I'll throw I have some Leicas, so once in a blue I'll throw a Leica on a second. My second camera will be that just to see if it changes my day a little bit. But I have noticed when I second shoot, because I'll do that once in a blue just for some $500 to kind of have autopilot for a day and make a little have some extra cash. I'll second shoot, and I noticed that my friends that are shooting these really new Canons, that my images are definitely not as up to snuff as maybe theirs are, and I go, ooh yeah, these D750 files when you compare them side by side with a brand new Sony or a brand new Canon or Nikon are kind of a little old. It's the only time I ever feel that way about them. But in general, I just don't think there's anything that a new camera rig would allow me to do that I can't already do.
Agreed. The files might be a little bit bigger, and I'm sure technically speaking, they're better quality because they should be, because our cameras, the D750s, are quite old. But still, those cameras are amazing. And at night, like the other day, I was shooting a meet and greet in a concert, and I'm like, there's no way I'm shooting these with Sony. Like, I won't rely this. It was so dark that I'm like, the only camera that is gonna work well for these photos is gonna be my D750, and I'm so happy that I am still have it, because I would have been in trouble with a
Yeah.
mirrorless.
I know a photographer that's either getting out of the game or transition to mirrorless or something like that, and he's selling both of his D850s. And she texted me yesterday about it, and I went, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to grab at least one of
One.
those because it's pretty cheap. And the D750s are old. I have had new shutters put into both. I get them CLA'd every year from NPS. But I like the 850s pretty nice. I've shot a few weddings with it. And I was like, this is a nice little prosumer upgrade. I used to shoot with the D4S way back in the day. And I actually really do miss having the big flagship camera. And I just have no need for that now these days. But it is leading me a little bit. I'm like, this is a pretty cheap upgrade, actually, just to have at least a little bit newer. But I have
Mhm.
no desire to go mirrorless. I have some mirrorless personal cameras, but I would not want to shoot them for weddings. They don't feel like the way I want to work.
Yeah, no, I understand. I am happy with mirrorless because it's more gentle with the body. Like, it's like they're so light. You don't have to. I don't lay on the floor as much as I used to
Do you
because of
feel
the
that they're
speed.
really that much lighter than the 750? I feel like the 750 is a
Yeah.
really small camera. I'm shooting with straps, so my back is even the whole day. I just have never felt that, and then carried an R6 and went, yeah, this is going to make an impact over the year.
Well, they are a little bit lighter for sure.
Mm,
Even in my hands, because I carry the weight with the hands. Even though I
okay,
have the straps too, I
yeah.
always have the camera up here. So my right hand used to be way bigger than my left one when I was shooting. Like, maybe now you can see the difference. My right hand was so big because it was so muscly from carrying the camera, and obviously I used to shoot with bigger cameras and with flash on and blah blah blah, and shooting every day. So now I find that mirrorless is gentler and makes me work less hard with the body. Like, it's not as physical as when I used to shoot mirrorless,
Mm,
but I mean, in DSLR. But still, I find that the mechanical shutter is very slow. It's not as great as I wish it was focusing. And there is something about the DSLRs that, even though I've been shooting for 5 years with mirrorless too, I still, when people ask me, should I sell all my equipment? I'm like, you should keep at least one camera.
yeah, I mean, I will say we were talking about this before the call. I've been having an issue with my wrist, which what I think it really is I think I just stretched or tore a tendon or a ligament while climbing too aggressively after a few months long break. But when I was going to the doctor, I was going to the orthopedic. It hit me while I was on my way. I went, oh yeah, I've been carrying a camera in this hand for 10 years. Like, not, I mean, a lot of the day is this, but as soon as reception hits, I'm one-handed all around and I'm just holding a camera with a prime lens. Yeah, I bet that probably caused me a problem. I'm
Of course.
sure my hand has like some kind of impact for it. And so I suppose now I don't feel the need to flip over. Maybe 10 years ago, if it was an option, I probably would have thought about it. But I still like a big honking camera. Like I said, if I could get a D5 or whatever the newest one is now,
We love that. Yeah,
I would totally buy that and carry it around.
of course.
Um, so what's your current problem? What's your problem? What are
That's
you
my
working on?
problem. Okay, my problem is that I guess I have a hard time keeping up with social media. That would be one of my biggest problems right now. Everything else I've been able to tackle.
Do
I
you have a
truly,
routine with it?
pardon me?
Do you have a routine with it? Do you have
I
like,
don't. I have a I think it's a lack of interest or motivation. Before it was like it's exciting just for to show the work. And I have so many images that I want to show, but I just find that right now all my energy is put towards myself in a way that I need to stay healthy. COVID hit me really hard and not just in general but also in my health, so all my energy is put towards recovering, fully recovering from that, and my mental health. And so social media is not something that is like on top of my priority list, but I also see how it can be hurting not keeping up. So it's like there is this new thing you need to start posting there too, and then I see how for some people it's natural. Like there are some platforms that are like really good at, like I have some amazing TikTokers friends, and but for me it's like I know that I need to keep up. I just don't have the motivation, but I know I have to do it. So I think that would be my main problem. And I know that that's one of the things that I should outsource, but I haven't found the right person to do that yet.
same? I
Same.
went from posting every day at 12:30 Central Time. Like, and then if it was a really good, and it went to Instagram and stories and whatever, and if it was a really good thing, and something I learned from Ben Chaish was he's like, if you shot a wedding and you're blogging something that like you actually give a crap about, and you want traction, that's the day to like triple it. So I would then post 3 posts in a day just from that wedding. It would go to Facebook, it would go to a blog, it would go to Instagram stories, it would go everywhere it needed to so that I could track it a day later and see that it is affecting my SEO positively. But then I tried to outsource that because I just didn't want to do it anymore. And so I outsourced it to a friend, like a friend's girlfriend. And I think I paid her like $100 a month. And I gave her my Dropbox and I gave her like thousands of quotes from Tumblr that I had pulled. And I was like, just do this. And the trouble was she's not going to be as selective with the images as I would be. And so I gave her a Dropbox of thousands of photos, but probably on me, it would have been better to say, you know what, let me hone this down to maybe the top 200 images that I want her to post from. But that would require a lot of work on my end. And setting up an outsource is usually, it's just it's the like the ease of adoption of outsourcing an edit or a call or any other admin work. That just seems like so difficult, and I always think about it in the middle of the wedding season. So I'm like, never mind, I'll just do this myself, and
That's the
then it just stays the
thing.
same.
It's exactly the problem. It's like, okay, if I have to select the images and then tell you and then give you the copy, and then I'm gonna do it. Like I
Yeah,
wouldn't
just take
like
care of it.
it's just kidding like posts and that's it. So I always end up in this circle of like, why am I gonna hire someone that doesn't have the eye, doesn't know what happened on the wedding day? So I know that that's a mistake. I know. So that's my main problem right now, and unfortunately I have no solution yet, so I'm just
Yeah.
hoping that
Unfortunately, I don't have
someone.
one for you either. I went and I stopped it and then I continued further. There was a certain point where I realized I was putting the same energy into my Instagram stories as I used to into my posts. And I was like, this is
Mm,
dumb too. So I stopped doing that. And because my business Instagram is my sole Instagram that I use for anything socially and business, I noticed that Instagram stories are a piece of currency in our social economy. And if I'm not posting to stories, I might meet a new friend this week in the city. We trade Instagrams, but now we're never like oh, you're going to that thing too? Oh, yeah, oh, you like this as well? Like that kind of back and forth dialogue died because I stopped using my stories. And so I've unfortunately leaned back into that for some stuff. I use close friends for when I don't want to work and I just want to take a photo of my pizza I'm ordering or whatever. But I've really completely turned off the like posting to my feed machine. I just do it whenever I feel like it. It's usually when I just feel like I need to ramble online about something, or if I'm posting a new shoot that's kind of rare these days. Um, but I definitely don't have an answer for you. However, I will tell you that just not doing it feels pretty nice too.
I know. I understand. I totally get it. It's just that for me, I it's this voice in the back of my head that okay, you need to. One of the things that I realized that it's very important is to keep your own website like running, even if it's not up to date and all that. If one day Mark Zuckerberg decides to shut down
Yeah,
Instagram, we're done, right?
yeah,
So at least my website, I put once in a while a lot of effort to it, but I realize that social media it's a daily
yeah.
thing.
I actually think a website can be like my website looks very same. I mean, it's been the same for years, and I don't mind that because the new bride and groom that's looking at it in 2023, they haven't seen it 3 years ago, so they don't
Oh no,
care.
yeah.
They have no idea that my website wasn't updated yesterday or 5 years ago, other than maybe blog dates. But Instagram is like so much. You scroll through and you go, whoa, wait, this guy hasn't posted since 2019. What's going on? Like, is he
I
even live?
know. Is he alive?
That's
I know.
it really requires that, and yeah, it's a pain, and I'm always really envious of photographers I meet. Like, there's this guy Cy Moore. I recently got to meet in person. He's out of New Zealand. Amazing photographer, works for huge brands. Not a big Instagrammer. Like, I mean, he posts stuff, but it's just kind of intermittent. But he's paying his mortgage. He has another business. He's got a wife or a partner. He's got a successful thing going on, and it doesn't require him to
No,
be
I know.
on scrolling around. And so there's definitely another way to do it, but I can't say I have the answer to it by any
I know.
means.
I know, I get it. And I know that it's not necessary, but for some reason, being a destination wedding photographer in Cancun, I feel like the
Mm,
market is looking through Instagram.
yeah,
And everything
you
else.
want to be at the top of that. Like
I
people are doing
do.
a quick Google. Are you like where do you land in Google's like pages? Are you
I
page
used
one,
to, I
page
used
10?
to, I used to be really good. That's why I put like not a lot of attention now, but I used to a lot. I used to blog all the time, and I
Yeah,
was doing very well. But now, like people that discover how to do SEO properly, now they're
yeah,
ranking way higher. So it depends on what you're looking for. But what
yeah,
I've noticed that works really well is articles that are helpful to brides and grooms, not just
yeah.
like I shot this wedding at this venue and all that. No, it's
Top
about
10 wedding venues in Cancun.
yeah,
How to
something
plan
like
for
that.
this, that, and the other.
Yeah, you will say like my most visited article on my blog, it's about wedding gift bags, like things that have
Yeah,
nothing to do with photography, but
but it
I
gets
have
eyes on your
shown.
page.
Yeah, it's important for brides and grooms. So as long as you're giving them information that it's valuable, I think people will visit for sure. So that's the thing. And when I just need to find a rhythm. But right now it's hard to keep up with all the mental
Yeah.
stuff. But it will happen.
I I will
I'm
say I
confident.
think I mean if you haven't already, you probably have, but like the idea of sitting down and doing it at the beginning of the month and having an app that kind of does this part for you has always appealed to me. Again, I've never done that. If I'm going to sit down and put 30 together, I'll just do it every day. But it's this idea like, okay, let's just do the one first, reap the benefits of doing this thing, and then not have to think about it all month.
I
And
know.
that sounds really nice, but again, never consistently maintain that idea.
Yeah, and there are always things like I have tried it, and but the thing is that Instagram, I don't know if now it does, but before they didn't allow you to post directly from
Right?
this.
Yeah, I still had to like
It's like
notify you, so you still had to be part of it, but you didn't have to put the mental load of like, what is this
totally,
caption? What are
totally.
these?
It's kind of helping, but it's not the full help that I want. I will spend like maybe 2 hours every Monday, but then if it's just gonna remind me to do it,
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
I believe we use later.com or latergram, whatever it's called. And to my knowledge, I'm not the guy that does this for for narrative, thankfully. But to my knowledge, it does post for us. And it's
oh,
something that like it's currently set up like 60 days worth of content in advance. And I don't know the ins and outs of the tagging and the tags and hashtags and how all that, if it functions very well. But to my knowledge, because especially because of the time difference, because they're 17 hours ahead, they are posting automatically and not on
Uh,
their phone. So I think it works.
I'm sure.
So
I'm
worth
sure
looking
that
into.
they are. I'm sure there are some apps that are like up to date now, and they are doing
Yeah.
it for us.
But
I'm
years
just.
ago, yeah, it was just like you got a message. You're like, all right, now I have to download the photo and do the whole
I don't
thing.
want to do it. I know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if it's working now, I might look into that. It's just I know I sound very old school, but it's just it's that's my problem. You know, I
No,
wanted
no,
to
no.
share
I
it
don't
with
know.
you.
I don't think that's old school at all. I think that I have always had a huge battle with Instagram. Like it doesn't matter if you have 5 followers or 5 million followers, the same issues persist. You know, it's just different, larger numbers of the problem, and then there's this guilt on the other side of it, and it's and now it's it's all about Instagram Reels and TikToks, and I have absolutely zero interest in participating in that. I don't even have TikTok on my phone. I refuse. And so it's just like I don't want to do all that. And I know there's an app out there that's called Glass that I really like that I signed up for a little bit. It's like $5 a month, and there's no ads, and it's just a place to share really high resolution work with all of the EXIF data, and that's really cool. But it's not going to get me any work. It just meets the satisfaction of putting it out somewhere into the world, but it's not going to book content.
Well,
It's not going to make
maybe some people will. You never
yeah,
know.
potentially. It's like 500 pics, 500 px, was really big, back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
And it's a neat space to share really beautiful high resolution content, but it's just another place to try to like get a name out there. And it just takes so much work.
I know, I agree. But well, we're sharing the
Yeah.
same problem then.
Yeah. I hope that maybe later or something like that works for you because your work is so beautiful. There will be links in the description below.
Thank you so
But
much.
thank you for taking up so much of your time today. This was really fantastic. And if I'm ever in Cancun, I'll have to hit you up. But I'm stoked to have met your connection, seen your work, and been exposed to it via narrative and everything like that. But I'm really glad that it's just in my personal feed in life now because it's really beautiful to see.
Thank you so much, Kyle. It was great chatting with you. You're such a great person. I'm so proud of you. And I know that the part of the interview wasn't about you, but I
No,
learned so
you're
much
the
about
guest.
you.
You're the guest.
Yeah, but I learned so much about you previous, like we started recording, and
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you're going through all these changes that are very important. And thank you for inviting me. And I'm so glad to be part of the narrative family. Thank you.